Hi, in this video we go over Worksheet 2 where we introduce you to string formatting in Python. As always, make sure you complete the tasks in this worksheet. The first thing you should do is follow this link and read and study the material that is there. Having done that, you should then continue. So let's look at what the format method is all about. Let's suppose you want to print a statement saying, there are 4 apples in the basket. Well, you could do it as I'll show right now. So let me comment this out and type it like this. So that's easy enough, and we learned to do that in the last video. Now, suppose you don't know beforehand exactly how many apples are going to be in the basket, but you want to have this print statement ready. Well, one way to do that is to use the format statement. Now, what I have here isn't quite how we normally use it, but let's look at it. So I can go here and let's uncomment this, and we run it this way now. So it says here, again, there are 4 apples in the basket. So what's the difference here? The difference here is that now I leave a placeholder for the number of apples, and so then I can feed in the value that goes in this placeholder using this format method. Now you might argue that, well, if I want to change the value, I still have to go and change this to, let's say, 7, and you would be right. But let's look at another way we could do this. Here I have a variable, and here for this variable I say then the number of apples is 6, let's say, and in here I place this variable. Now we begin to see the flexibility, because num apples could be, the number of apples could be a different value. So let's run this, and it's 6. But now I don't need to go and change the string that is being printed. I simply change the value of the number of apples. So that could be changed to 14. And notice, you could argue that I still have to go and actually physically change something in the program, and you would be right. But here's where you can see the flexibility of this thing. I could write this in a way that when I run the program doesn't know what the number of apples is. For example, the number of apples could be determined by contacting some database and getting a value, or going on the internet or something. For now, let's just use a simple input statement. I'll just simply say input, and I'll just say enter number of apples. Now as you look at this, you can see that when the program is running, or before the program runs, the number of apples is not established. And so when I run this, I can enter the number of apples, let's say 25, and I get there are 25 apples in the basket. I can run it again. Notice I don't need to change anything. I just run the program, and the program will always go and somehow fetch the value. In this case, it's fetching the value from the user. There are 89 apples in the basket. We could make this look a little bit better by putting a colon here and a little space. So let's run this again. How many apples? 58. And there it looks a little bit better. Enter number of apples, 58. There are 58 apples in the basket. So we can use multiple placeholders. So here we see we have this output string. So now instead of typing the string directly into the print statement, we create this output string separately and assign it to a variable which we call output string. And we say blank blank is blank years old. And what we want to go here, we want to have the first name go here, the last name go here, and the age go here. So we make sure we put our variables in that order. Again, remember, these values could be determined at runtime. When your program is running, it could calculate a value and then place that value in this variable. So for example, maybe the program knows the person's date of birth, and the program knows the current year, so it can calculate the person's age and then place that value here. So I hope you appreciate the flexibility that this offers. So the important thing here also is to remember that these variables have to be in the order that you want them to appear in these placeholders. And so we go, and John Smith is 34 years old. Sometimes you don't want to limit yourself to having to place these in any particular order. And so for example here we have age first and F name second, but I want the F name to be first here, John, and the age second. We don't want to say 54 is John years old. We want to say John is 54 years old. But here, for some reason or the other, let's suppose I need to have age first and F name second. Well, then I just can refer to these using a numbering system. Now, be aware that as these are numbered, the numbering starts at 0. So this is variable 0, this is variable 1, and if we had more, they would go 0, 1, 2, 3. So the nice thing about this is that then I can refer to a variable more than once. So for example, well, let's run this first. And we see John is 54 years old. So let's modify this a little bit more and say, and place just a, yes, he is, then blank years old. And then of course I can just put 0 in here, and the system will know I'm referring to this one. Yes, he is 54 years old. So again, you see the flexibility. There is also the possibility of using what are called keyword arguments. So this here we use something called positional arguments. Now this is keyword arguments. Keyword arguments, in fact, are pretty similar to positional arguments in the sense that the difference being that instead of them being automatically labeled 0, 1, 2, 3, you give it the label. So for example, here age is assigned to a variable ag and F name is assigned to a variable fn. Note you can't put the variables directly in here, it just won't work. So we put fn here and ag here, and we're good to go. Notice Susan is 21 years old, and we can do the same trick we did just now. We can refer to one of those variables again. We can say, yes, she is blank years old. And here I can put AG. And see, Susan is 21 years old. Yes, she is 21 years old. So here, do these tasks. Write a small script that uses a string formatter. Your script should include variables, a string to be used for output, as we have here, and a print statement. So be creative. And then you should do these review tasks. Make sure you use the string formatter for these also. So let me do this first one for you here. We're going to take a number representing a certain number of minutes and then express this in seconds. So we can say, well, minutes equal, and I can go input and then type enter the number of minutes. And then I can say seconds is equal to 60 times minutes. Now, actually I'm making a little mistake here, and it's a mistake that won't cause the program to not run. It'll run, but it'll just not give you the result you expect. I don't know if you can imagine what the mistake is that I'm making. I can go now and say print, and then simply say blank minutes is equal to blank seconds, and then use my little format method, and I'll just put it in the order I need them, minutes. So let's run this. There's a mistake here. Can you see it? Think about it. Pause the video if you need to and think about it. There is a mistake here. What's going to happen? Will this give the result we're expecting? So let's run it. Enter the number of minutes. Let's say enter 5. Well, that should be 5 times 60, 300 seconds. Oh, I get 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now if you were to count these 5s, how much do you think you'd have here? How many do you think you'd have? Actually, you'd have 60. So what happened here is that this value that was associated with minutes is of type string. It is not an int. And so when faced with a string, what 60 times that string means is that it should repeat that value 60 times. Obviously, that is not what we want here. So we have to convert this to an int. So let me just do that. So this is called typecasting. It's converting that value from a string to an int. Notice the string has to be a legitimate int. It can't be something that can't be converted to an int. Let's run this now. And if I type in 5, I get 5 minutes is equal to 300 seconds. Alright, so I've done this one for you. Make sure you do the others. Try and be creative and do something good. Okay, so that's it for this video.